Dr. Celine Ward had always believed that curiosity was the heart of science. For years, she had studied peaceful alien cultures, traveled to planets where humans could barely breathe, and spoken at conferences where translators struggled to keep up with her fast excitement. But nothing in her long career prepared her for the chamber she woke up in, cold, white, and impossibly quiet. She sat on a smooth platform in the center of a circular room. The walls glowed with a soft blue light, bright enough to see but strangely dull, like light that had lost its warmth. Above her, hidden behind a layer of transparent shielding, dozens of alien observers watched silently. Their silhouettes were tall and thin, with long arms and silver-gray skin. Their large eyes reflected the room like mirrors, making it impossible to tell where they were looking, though Celine felt their gaze on her every second. Her throat burned from shouting on the first day. She had demanded answers, demanded that they release her, demanded anything, but no one had spoken to her directly. The observers only wrote notes, whispered to each other, or adjusted the consoles around their seats. They behaved as if she were some simple puzzle they were trying to solve. On the second day, she tried staying calm. She asked gentle questions. She promised cooperation. She explained that humans preferred communication, not silence. But the room gave her nothing back. No answers, no expressions, not even a word of reassurance. Only watching. Always watching. By day 3, Celine began to understand why the chamber felt wrong. It was designed for emotional pressure. The lighting slowly changed throughout the day, shifting to colors that made her feel uneasy or isolated. The temperature dropped just enough to keep her uncomfortable, never enough to cause injury. Soft sounds, barely audible, like distant ticking, rose and fell randomly. None of it hurt, but all of it wore down her nerves. She knew a psychological experiment when she saw one, and yet knowing did not protect her from the strain. On the 4th day, she screamed. Not because she was in danger, but because she needed someone to acknowledge she was still a person. She cried out that she was human, that she wasn't a specimen. Her voice echoed back at her, thin and broken. The aliens continued taking notes. It was only then, on day 4, that Celine noticed something different. In the observation balcony, far off to the right, there was one human among the watchers. He was young, maybe in his early 30s, with dark hair that never quite stayed in place. He didn't take notes like the others. Instead, he leaned forward in his seat, gripping the railing with both hands. His eyes were full of worry. Every time Celine shouted, his jaw tightened. Whenever she curled into herself in exhaustion, he looked as if he were fighting the urge to run down to her. He wasn't cold like the aliens. He wasn't detached. He cared. Celine didn't know his name, but she clung to the fact that he existed. A single human who had not accepted her suffering as part of the process. On the 5th day, Celine tried speaking directly to him. "You!" she called out, her voice shaking. "You can hear me, right? Please, tell me what they want. Tell me why I'm here." The human observer looked startled, as if he had not expected her to single him out. He touched the console beside him, hesitated, then pulled his hand away before pressing anything. His expression softened. Full of apology he could not voice. He mouthed. Not spoken, only mouthed. "I'm sorry." The words were small, but they were the first sense of humanity Celine had been given in days. On day 6, Celine began noticing cameras embedded into the walls, tiny blinking devices that followed her movements. She understood now. She was being studied, monitored, measured. But for what purpose? She had done nothing wrong. She had not broken any laws. Her research mission had been peaceful. Her memories of the day she was taken were blurry. She remembered boarding the shuttle with a team of xenobiologists. She remembered the bright shimmer of a portal opening near their station. And then, nothing. A quick, sharp flash of light, and then this chamber. By day 7, her voice had grown too weak for screaming. She spoke only when she had to. "Why are you doing this? What do you want to learn from me? Please, say something." Her words faded into the cold room. The aliens kept watching. They didn't look cruel, only detached. Their study seemed to be more important than her well-being. Their faces never changed. Their long fingers moved gracefully over their devices, and their posture remained perfectly straight. They were like statues with beating hearts. But the human observer changed every day. He often shook his head, frustrated. He tapped his foot rapidly. Sometimes he covered his mouth with both hands when Selene cried softly in the corner. Once, Selene saw him stand halfway up from his seat before a tall alien beside him motioned for him to sit back down. He obeyed, but anger flared in his eyes. He looked like someone fighting an internal war. On day 8, Selene pressed her hand against the transparent barrier, staring directly at him. "I know you can hear me," she whispered. "Please, I don't want to be alone anymore." The human swallowed hard. He looked around, checking if anyone was watching him. Then slowly, he touched the console in front of him. A small red transmit symbol blinked, but only for a second. He didn't speak. He seemed afraid to try. But the act alone told Selene he was trying to find a way to reach her. Her heart felt lighter. She didn't know his name. She didn't know why he was there. But she knew, without doubt, that he was the only one who saw her as a person. By day 9, Selene was exhausted, but she was no longer broken. Strength returned to her, not from rest, but from hope. Every time she looked up toward the balcony, she saw him watching her with the same determined expression. His shoulders were tense, his eyes never left her for long, and his hands hovered over the console as though he was preparing to do something he shouldn't. That morning, something unusual happened. The chamber light suddenly flickered, not part of the usual pattern. This flicker was sharp, glitching, almost aggressive. The aliens murmured among themselves, adjusting controls with unusual urgency. Selene watched as the human observer leaned close to his console, typing quickly. His expression was focused, serious in a way she had not seen before. The aliens noticed. One of them grabbed his wrist, stopping him. Selene's heart jumped. The human jerked his arm away, stood up, and said something that Selene couldn't hear, but his face burned with anger. He was arguing, loudly, pointing at her, pointing at the console, pointing at the chamber as if demanding they stop whatever they were doing. Several alien observers turned toward him. Their eyes glowed a brighter silver. They weren't used to being defied. Selene pressed her hand to the barrier again, breath trembling. He was fighting for her. The aliens spoke in a unified, calm tone, trying to silence him. But he shook his head firmly. He refused to sit down. He refused to stop. Selene didn't know what he was saying, but she knew what he meant. She was not alone, not anymore. The glowing blue panels around the chamber dimmed again. Another system glitch, more whispers among the aliens, more tension in the balcony. Something was changing, something was cracking in the perfect silence of the observation. Selene lifted her chin, gathering the last bits of her strength. For 9 days they had watched her suffer. On the 10th day, something was going to break, and it would not be her. The 10th day on the alien station began with quiet tension. No alarms, no sudden lights, no shaking walls. Just a deep silence that felt heavier than anything Selene had experienced so far. She woke with a start, her heart beating fast. Something in the air had changed. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. The glowing blue walls hummed faintly. The temperature felt slightly warmer than usual, almost as if the chamber itself was unsure what to do. Selene looked up toward the balcony, searching immediately for the only face that mattered to her now. He was there, the same human observer. His expression was tight, his shoulders tense. He didn't sit as straight as the aliens. He leaned forward as if waiting for something, anything, to happen. Selene exhaled in relief. He hadn't given up. He hadn't walked away. His presence made the room feel less empty. The aliens around him whispered among themselves, their silver eyes darting between him and the consoles. They seemed impatient, unsettled. Their usual calm, emotionless behavior was cracking. Celine pushed herself to her feet. She stood tall, even though her body felt weeks older. "Please," she spoke softly, her voice still rough. "Just tell me what this is about. Someone. Anyone." As always, the aliens did not answer. But the human did something new. He raised his hand, slowly, carefully, and pointed at himself. Then he pointed at her. Then he touched the communication console again, this time holding his finger on it for several seconds. For the first time, a tiny, faint beep echoed through the chamber. Celine's breath caught. The console had acknowledged a command. The aliens reacted instantly, moving toward him, speaking in sharp tones she could not understand. One grabbed the console, another stepped between him and the railing, but he didn't step back, not this time. He shook his head, arguing again, not shouting but firm, determined. Celine saw the way he pressed his hand to his chest, then gestured toward her again. He wasn't just breaking rules. He was demanding compassion. Celine's throat tightened. It had been almost 10 days since anyone had looked at her like she mattered. The human pointed to one of the alien supervisors. He spoke with urgency, his hands moving in gestures Celine didn't recognize. But the meaning was clear. He was challenging their decision, challenging their protocols, challenging everything happening in this chamber. The supervisor alien tilted their head, unimpressed. They answered calmly. The human clenched his fists. Something inside Celine shifted. She had spent 9 days trapped in fear and confusion, but now she stood straighter, her heartbeat steady. She had no power in this place, none. But the fact that someone was fighting for her gave her strength she didn't know she still had, and she would not waste it. She stepped closer to the glass-like barrier. "What is your name?" she called. "Please, I want to know your name." Her voice echoed gently. The human looked at her, startled. He opened his mouth. Celine could see the words forming. But the aliens shut off the balcony's audio system before anything reached her. Even so, Celine saw his lips move clearly. Elias. His name was Elias. Celine pressed her hand to the barrier. "Elias," she whispered. "Thank you." The air around the observation chamber suddenly shifted again. New lights blinked on above the consoles. The aliens straightened, focusing on the central display. Something was happening. Something unplanned. Elias saw it too. His eyes widened. He grabbed the console again, typing rapidly. Celine watched him work. His fingers moved fast, almost frantic. He looked like someone trying to stop a mistake from becoming a disaster. "Elias!" Celine called, worry creeping into her chest. "What's happening?" He glanced at her briefly, a look full of warning and apology. Then the chamber lights flickered harshly. A low hum filled the room, a sound Celine had only heard once before, on day 1 when she first arrived. That sound meant the chamber was entering a new protocol. Celine's breath froze. The aliens began speaking urgently, tapping their consoles, trying to stabilize something. Some looked annoyed, others seemed concerned. A few turned toward Elias with accusing expressions. Even without touching the glass, Celine could feel tension growing like a storm. Elias leaned close to the console, reading rapidly. Celine watched his face pale. He looked down at her and shook his head slowly, almost in fear. Celine stepped back. "What is it?" she whispered to herself. The main display above the balcony flashed symbols in the alien language. She couldn't read them, but she recognized a pattern. Triangle symbols repeating, a bar filling across the screen. A new test, a big one, and probably not meant for her. Elias grabbed the arm of the nearest alien, speaking quickly. The alien pushed him away and continued working. Elias tried again, more urgent. The alien supervisor snapped something at him, pointing firmly at the exit door. Selene understood even without hearing the words. They were ordering Elias to leave. Her heart dropped. No, not now. Not when everything felt like it was about to collapse. Elias took a step toward the exit, then stopped. He turned and looked down at Selene. She met his eyes. For a moment, they simply stared at each other across the silent chamber. Then Elias made a decision. He spun back to the console, typed several commands, and hit a button with the side of his fist. Alarms blared through the balcony. The aliens lurched in surprise. The consoles flashed red. Symbols changed rapidly. Selene took a step back as the lights in her chamber dimmed. The humming sound cut off mid-tone. A breeze, strange in such a controlled environment, brushed past her. Something big had been interrupted. Elias had interfered. He had broken their protocol. He had stopped whatever they were about to do. The aliens reacted instantly. 3 moved to restrain him. Elias backed away, raising his hands defensively. But even as they grabbed him, he shouted something towards Selene. She couldn't hear the words, but she could read the intention on his face. I won't let them hurt you. The aliens pulled him back, but not before he slammed another key on the console. The lights in Selene's chamber flickered again. This time not from a protocol, but from a system override. A panel slid open near the base of the chamber wall, a hidden panel, a maintenance hatch. Selene froze. Elias twisted against his captors, motioning toward the hatch. His eyes went wide with urgency. Selene understood. He wanted her to use it. He had found a weakness. He had created a chance. The aliens holding him finally subdued him, pulling him toward the exit. Elias fought for a moment, then looked straight at Selene. Even as they dragged him away, he lifted his chin and nodded once. Firm, certain, brave. Selene's chest tightened. She wanted to shout his name, to demand they release him, to do anything. But her voice refused to come. The balcony door shut behind Elias and the guards. The chamber dimmed again. The alarm softened. The room fell into a strange, unstable quiet. Selene looked at the open hatch. 9 days of silence. 9 days of fear. 9 days of isolation. And one human who saw her as a person. One human who tried to save her. She moved toward the hatch slowly at first, then faster as adrenaline pushed her forward. The opening was small, but wide enough for her to crawl through. Inside it was dark, but she could feel warm air flowing, as if it led into the inner machinery of the station. She glanced back once more at the balcony. "Thank you, Elias," she whispered. "I won't waste this." Then she slid into the maintenance tunnel. The hatch closed behind her. For the first time in 10 days, Selene Ward was out of the chamber. But she had no idea what dangers, traps, or discoveries waited in the shadows of the alien station. Her heart pounded with fear and hope, because now she wasn't just surviving, she was escaping. The maintenance tunnel was narrow, dim, and warm. Selene crawled on her hands and knees, feeling the metal vibrate faintly beneath her palms. Small lights glowed along the walls, soft orange dots meant to guide technicians. They flickered calmly, unaware that a human life depended on their glow. Selene's breath came in fast bursts. She had no idea where this tunnel led, but she trusted the person who gave her this chance. Elias had risked everything, his reputation, his safety, maybe even his freedom, to help her escape. She whispered his name once under her breath, a reminder of courage in a place built to break spirits. "Hold on, Elias. I won't let your effort be wasted." She kept moving. After several minutes, the tunnel angled upward and widened enough for her to stand. She pressed her palm against the wall for balance, taking slow breaths. The air here smelled different, cooler, cleaner. It reminded her of the station's main corridors, the ones she had glimpsed on her first and only walk here before everything went wrong. She reached a metal grate blocking her path. Through its slits, she could see a dim corridor with curved walls and soft purple lights. No guards. No observers. Carefully, Celine pushed the grate. It resisted at first, stuck from years of stillness, but with a firm shove, it popped open. She stepped into the corridor and looked around. It was quiet. Too quiet. Her heart beat loudly in her ears as she moved forward. Every step felt dangerous, but also full of purpose. She was no longer a silent subject. She was moving, deciding, thinking, free in ways she hadn't been for days. As she walked, she listened for footsteps, voices, anything. But the station seemed strangely still. Maybe Elias's override had done more than open a hatch. Maybe he had disrupted a larger system. The thought made her chest warm with hope. After several turns, she reached a larger hallway lined with smooth panels displaying flowing alien script. She couldn't read it, but she recognized the symbols for sector and level. She followed the corridor downward, trusting her instincts. Soon she heard faint voices ahead. She froze, pressing her back to the wall. 2 aliens were speaking, calm, professional tones, discussing system errors and unexpected shutdowns. They didn't sound worried about an escaped human. They didn't even mention her. That meant they still didn't know she was gone. Celine exhaled silently in relief. She waited until their footsteps faded, then continued forward. The corridor opened into a circular lobby with 3 possible paths. On the far wall was a large, glowing diagram of the station. She approached it slowly. The map displayed different levels: research wings, supply decks, observation halls, accommodation areas, and, most importantly, docking bays. Her heart jumped. Escape. But she didn't know where Elias had been taken. She didn't know if he was safe. The idea of leaving him behind twisted painfully inside her. She traced a finger across the diagram. Observation Sector C. That was where she had been held. Nearby was a level marked with a symbol she had seen earlier on alien uniforms, a symbol she suspected meant security. Elias was probably there. Celine wrestled with the choice. Freedom was possible, but Elias had stepped between her and her suffering when no one else did. He had given her strength when she had nearly lost it. He had risked himself for her. She took a shaky breath. "I won't leave him," she whispered. "He didn't leave me." She chose the path leading toward the security sector. The corridor grew brighter and more polished as she approached. She moved carefully, sticking to the shadows of decorative pillars that lined the walls. The floor hummed faintly below her, reacting to movement. She worried it might reveal her presence, but no alarms sounded. When she reached the security checkpoint, she stopped abruptly. 2 guards stood near a console. Their backs turned. A transparent barrier blocked access to the hallway beyond, glowing with a soft green field. Celine scanned the walls. No vents, no side tunnels, no easy escape routes. She needed a distraction, or a moment when the guards looked away. Her chance came sooner than she expected. A loud alarm blared from far down the hallway behind her. The sound echoed sharply, bouncing off the metal walls. Both guards straightened and looked toward the noise. "It must be the system error," one said in the alien language, though Celine could guess the meaning from their tone. They stepped away from the console to investigate. Celine darted forward, her heart racing. She reached the console and scanned for anything familiar. Symbols flashed across its surface, but she noticed one repeating icon, the same triangle pattern she had seen many times in the observation chamber. She pressed it. The barrier flickered, then dissolved into thin air. Celine didn't wait. She slipped through the opening just as the guards turned around in surprise. She heard one of them call out sharply, but she was already running down the next hallway, her steps quick and light. She rounded a corner and stopped breathlessly. Ahead of her was a small detention corridor. The lights were dimmer here. The air smelled faintly metallic. Doors lined the walls, each with a tiny window. She approached the first one and peered inside. Empty. Second door. Empty. Third door. Her breath caught. Inside sat Elias. He was on a bench, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together tightly. His head hung low. His expression tired but stubborn. Two alien guards stood at the far room, watching him carefully through the glass. Celine's eyes stung with emotion. He looked up. His eyes widened. He stood so quickly the bench scraped loudly. He rushed forward until he was inches from the transparent barrier. "Celine?" he mouthed silently, disbelief and relief mixing across his face. Celine pressed her hand to the glass. "Elias." "I'm here." She scanned the door panel. The controls were simpler than she expected, symbols she recognized from earlier. She pressed the release icon. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Elias didn't hesitate. He stepped out, but the urgency in his eyes returned immediately. "We need to go," he mouthed, nodding down the hallway. Celine nodded. She didn't need sound to understand him. Together they ran. Elias led the way, guiding her through hallways she hadn't seen. He moved with purpose, clearly familiar with the station's layout. Celine followed close behind, trusting him completely. They reached another wide lobby. Voices echoed behind them, guards realizing what had happened. The chase had begun. Elias pointed toward a long glass window showing the outside of the station. Tiny lights blinked across the curve of the docking bays. He motioned. That's where they needed to go. Celine matched his pace. Her lungs burned, but she pushed forward, refusing to stop. They reached a final corridor, one with a sign above it showing the symbol for travel, an arrow pointing outward. The docking bay door opened automatically as they approached. Inside was a sleek shuttle resting on a platform, its lights glowing softly. Its engines silent, but ready. Elias rushed to the control panel beside the ramp and pressed the activation symbol. The ramp lowered. Celine stepped inside first. Elias followed, closing the ramp behind them. Inside the shuttle, everything was clean and organized. Elias moved straight to the pilot's chair and started tapping commands. The shuttle hummed to life, lights awakening across the dashboard. Celine stood behind him, her hands gripping the seat tightly. "Elias," she whispered, "thank you. For everything." He turned slightly, enough for her to see the small, exhausted smile on his face. "You would have done the same," he mouthed. The shuttle lifted. Alarms blared across the docking bay. Aliens rushed in, waving their arms, shouting commands. But the shuttle was already rising, engines warming. Systems locking onto an exit route. Then, the shuttle surged forward. Through the window, the alien station grew smaller behind them. The stars widened around them. The silence of space wrapped around the shuttle like a blessing. Celine sank into the chair beside Elias, tears slipping down her cheeks. She wasn't trapped anymore. Elias glanced at her, his eyes soft. "You're safe now," he mouthed gently. Celine nodded, voice trembling. "We're safe." Together they watched the station fade into the distance, leaving behind 9 days of fear, a chamber built to break her, and a crowd that never cared, except one human who refused to stay silent, one human who chose compassion over protocol, one human with the courage to intervene, and because of him, Celine was free.